Well, it is my honor to introduce the Attorney General of the great state of Texas. As Max said, he is a fighter and a warrior. Greg Abbott stepped forward when Obamacare passed over the desires of America with all those special interest provisions, all those taxes, 159 new federal agencies in between you and your doctor. Greg Abbott stepped forward in the nation to file and lead the first lawsuit to declare Obamacare unconstitutional. And by the way, he was right. The Supreme Court got it wrong. When the EPA tried to take over Texas's air quality permits, to take over our refineries, to slow down our energy in Texas, guess who led the fight, successful fight, to stop in the courts? That's right, Greg Abbott. When the courts wanted to redraw the lines for the State House and the Senate and Congress in ways that just were absolute insane, Greg Abbott stepped forward, filed a suit, went to the Supreme Court, won 9-0, and restored the state's power to draw these maps. That's what Greg Abbott did. In the challenges to our 10 Commandments, in the challenges in Kuntz, in my congressional district, to cheerleaders to express their religious faith. In football, guess who stepped forward? Greg Abbott. He's been a fighter and a warrior year after year. He has been as powerful and dedicated a champion for limited government and states' rights as anyone in America. Please welcome with me our Attorney General, Greg Abbott.
Thank you all so much, and Congressman Brady, thank you for the kind introduction. And let me tell you, it is great to be in the conservative bastion of Conroe, Texas. With a bunch of freedom-loving patriots who understand that the first 3 words of the United States Constitution are, "We the people." And that's because it's we, the people, who are in charge, not the federal government. And I come here today with some very good news for all of you. And that is that in 2 weeks from Tuesday, we are going to retire Harry Reid as the Majority Leader of the United States Senate. We're going to fire Barack Obama as the United States President. And we are going to return this country to we, the people. Now, I'm meeting many of you for the first time today, and some of you may be wondering why it is that I'm in a wheelchair. What happened to me is that when I moved to Houston back in 1984, one day I went out for a jog. And while I was out jogging, a huge 80-foot oak tree fell on me. It hit me in the back, crushed my vertebrae and my spinal cord, leaving me forever paralyzed, needing to use the wheelchair that I'm in now. Some of you are shaking your heads wondering, how slow was that guy jogging to get hit by a falling tree? I bring this up because in the aftermath of my injury, going on to become a state district judge in Houston, a Supreme Court justice in the state of Texas, and now as your Attorney General, I learned an important lesson. And that is, our lives are not defined by how we are challenged. Instead, we get to define our lives by the way that we overcome the challenges we face. That applies to the reason we are here today. We as Americans face some big challenges. We face an overreaching federal government that is trying to limit our liberty. We're facing a federal government that has imposed on us $16 trillion in debt. And we're facing a regulatory regime that is crushing the ability to create new jobs. And then on top of all that, for the past 4 years, we've seen Barack Obama bust the budget, take over health care, provide things like Miranda rights for terrorists, and crisscross the globe apologizing for American exceptionalism. It is time for conservatives to fight. It is time for conservatives to win and reclaim this country. Americans have always stood up in the face of a challenge, and they have fought back from the time of the Revolutionary War to World War II to the ashes of 9/11. Americans have always stood up, fought back, and fought for freedom. And I want you to know that's exactly what I'm doing for you as your Attorney General. I go into the office to fight for your freedom against an overreaching federal government. I know some of you are wondering, what exactly does the Attorney General for the state of Texas do? Well, for the past 4 years, my job definition has gotten easy. These days, in the morning, I go into the office. During the day, I sue Barack Obama, and then I go home. I've sued the federal government 24 times in the last 3 years. And that is not because I believe in litigation, but because I believe in liberty, and I am willing to fight for it. At the top of our list, as you know, was our fight against Obamacare. On the day that the president signed Obamacare into law, I went to court, filed a lawsuit against Barack Obama telling him not to mess with Texas. Now, you all know this past June, the Supreme Court ruled against us, and so that fight was lost because the United States Supreme Court said that Obamacare really was the Obama tax, imposing a tax on millions of middle-class Americans. Well, here's the deal. We may have lost the battle, but we have not lost the war against Obamacare. The 9 justices on the Supreme Court cast their vote in June. Now, in just 16 days, our fellow Americans get to cast their vote on Obamacare, and they can vote to repeal Obamacare. But to repeal Obamacare, they must first vote to repeal Barack Obama. Now, earlier this year, I added another lawsuit when I filed a lawsuit against Eric Holder, the United States Attorney General. Eric Holder is denying Texas its right to have a voter identification law requiring voters to show a photo ID when they go vote. He claims that Texas hasn't shown sufficient need for a voter ID law, and Eric Holder just doesn't get it. I've prosecuted voter fraud across the state of Texas. We've had dead people casting votes, live people voting twice, foreign nationals who are here illegally registered to vote illegally. Voter fraud is real. It must be stopped, and I will go all the way to the United States Supreme Court to put a stop to cheating and illegal voting. You know, it's amazing because in this last May primary election, we had a lot of people who were deceased who already cast a vote, many of them in person, that shows that the resurrection is alive and well right here in the state of Texas. But I got to tell you, of all the challenges that I've been involved in, the one that concerns me the most is the assault on faith in this country. You know, it's one thing when we see the assault on faith being waged by atheists. It's another when we see the assault on faith being waged from inside the White House. Imagine this. Just last month, we saw at the Democrat National Convention that they removed God from the Democrat platform, only to try to reinsert God in their platform, only to have God booed from the floor of the Democrat National Convention. Well, we see this show up in litigation. As you heard Kevin tell you, and I know you know, I began this fight when I defended the constitutionality of the 10 Commandments monument that stands on the Texas Capitol grounds. An atheist was walking across the Texas Capitol grounds, saw that monument, and asked a federal judge to tear it down. And my answer was simple. Not on my watch will I allow the 10 Commandments monument to be torn down from the state of Texas. Well, I also defended In fact, I took the lead among all 50 states in defending the constitutionality of the phrase, "one nation under God," in our Pledge of Allegiance. Then May a year ago, I defended the Medina Valley Independent School District when, during a graduation ceremony, students wanted to say a prayer, they wanted to have an invocation and a benediction, and a federal judge told them no. So I joined in an effort at appealing that to the Federal Court of Appeals, getting that court to agree that students were allowed to pray when they graduate from high school. And then, as you know, this last week, I stood up for a group of cheerleaders in Conroe, Texas, who all they wanted to do was to exercise their First Amendment right to recognize God on a playing field just like this. I know every single person in this stadium today, as well as Americans across this country, hunger for leadership in this land. You hunger for someone who's going to stand on their principles. And we all got a lesson in that when we saw a group of teenage girls take a stand on what they consider to be their principle in the face of adult atheists from Wisconsin, in the face of their own independent school district. We had cheerleaders become real community leaders and stand on principle in this country. These cheerleaders are guaranteeing for the next generation that the United States of America will remain one nation under God. Well, let me just close by saying this. All these lawsuits I bring and all the court decisions we get, win or lose, they can only do so much, and they can only take us so far. Sure, they can help us defend the liberty that we all inherited from our founding fathers, but they cannot restore integrity or common sense in wayward leaders in Washington, D.C. If we are going to do that, we need to make sure that Barack Obama gets a private sector job for the first time in his life. But this is about more than just one person, and it's about more than just one election. This is about the cause of liberty. Now think about this. Over the past few years, many of our fellow Americans have lost jobs because of the economy. But I submit to you that all Americans have lost something far more precious. They've lost their liberty to a federal government takeover. A rising economy will eventually bring back lost jobs, but it can't restore lost liberty. If we are going to regain our liberty, we Patriots must band together and take back our country. You can do that, we can do that, because Americans can face up to any challenge. God bless you all, and may God continue to bless the great state of Texas. Thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, Greg Abbott, Attorney General of Texas.